Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, President-elect Bongbong Marcos meets with his economic team. What are the marching orders of the incoming president for the country to recover from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic? Bangko Sentral Governor and incoming Finance Secretary Ben Diokno joins us live. Malacañang appeals to transport groups not to go on strike amid skyrocketing prices of fuel products. PISTON President Mody Floranda tells us more later, live. President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is rolling up his sleeves. Starting with the national budget for 2023, he ordered his incoming Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman to power up the economy by putting more money in areas flashed on your screens. Pangandaman says she will work with the entire economic team to fulfill the president-elect's campaign promises. On Monday, Marcos met with the members of his economic team led by Finance Secretary-designate Ben Diokno at his headquarters in Mandaluyong City. So let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Bangko Sentral Governor and incoming Finance Secretary Ben Diokno. Governor, welcome back to the source. It's good to see you again.
Good morning, Pinky, and nice for you to invite me.
President-elect Bongbong Marcos, as I mentioned, sir, met with his economic team yesterday. We saw photos of that. Can you please tell us what was initially discussed?
Well, we actually discussed what we intend to do for the next 6 years. That's the marching order. We will prepare what we call a medium-term fiscal plan for the next 6 years. The first half of that, the 2023 to 2025, will be a detailed medium-term fiscal plan. And we plan to submit that to Congress for their ratification. And then thereafter, all the next budgets for 2023, 24, 25, will be in accordance with that plan. So the main goal is to reduce the deficit to GDP ratio to around 3% by the end of his term. And we want to, of course, satisfy our original plan to be an upper middle income economy. And we want to reduce poverty to single digit by the end of his term. So those are the broad instructions by the president.
Let's go to some specifics. Governor, if you don't mind, tell us about the economic team's pandemic exit plan. How will the country first recover from what happened in the past 2 years?
Actually, we have already started the exit. This is on the part of the central bank because of the strong growth in the first quarter. The economy grew by 8.3% in the first quarter. And we expect the economy to grow even faster in the second quarter. So on the basis of that, plus the normalization of employment, it has gone down to 5.8%. So we feel that it's time for the economy to go back to its original position. And so the central bank started normalizing the interest rate from 2 to 2.5. And maybe this month, we will again make the other adjustments. The other sign that we have normalized is that at the height of the crisis, we provided some assistance to the national government. We lent them some 540 billion pesos interest-free. This is in 2020 to 2020, 2021. And now it's fully paid for. That 540 billion that we extended to them to help them during the pandemic has been fully paid for. We also have stopped participating or minimized our participation in the secondary GS market. So the exit has started, actually.
So you talk about 540 billion that was lent to the national government, which was given interest-free, which also has been paid for. Are there, I guess, it's good to know any plans to possibly shore up revenue in the face of other debts, possibly from the COVID-19 response funding. And I'd like to find out from you, Governor, if any of these debts from the COVID-19 response, its payment, do any of them actually fall in 2023, which is next year?
No, practically all the debt that we incurred during the pandemic are not short term. They are medium term or long term. I recall there are some with which has a maturity of about 25 years, some 40 years. These are also at reasonable rates. You can see debt of 0.25%. And so the increase in the public debt during the pandemic was really necessary, so we can actually address the requirements of the pandemic. Without doing that, we would still be in a slump at the moment. So that's good. We invested both for the pandemic, and we also continued with our build program. So that's really the source of the increase in the debt from 39.6% of GDP to around 53%. Okay, and I think that's not scary. Rather, 63.5% from 39.6% of GDP to 63.5%. If you look at other countries, they have debt to GDP ratio in the neighborhood of 100, 200, even 300%. So the way to pay for this debt is by growing, because the denominator is GDP. So as long as the economy grows at 6-7%, we can easily pay our debt.
6 to 7%. Just as a comparison that you made earlier, it appears that our debt to GDP from 39 to 63% increased by less than 100%. And you're saying that in other countries, the increase of debt to GDP is actually much more than that?
Where right now, the debt to GDP ratio of most other countries are in the neighborhood of 100%, 200%, even higher. So this is really not worrisome, because we know that the economy before the pandemic was growing at around 6%. Okay. So as long as, for example, we made a projection, if the economy grows at 7% this year, and then grows at 6% for the next 6 years, we'll be able to reduce significantly our debt to GDP ratio, and that we will be back to where we were before. Our deficit to GDP ratio will be around 3%, which is fairly normal for an emerging economy like the Philippines.
But you're looking at a 7%, of course, next year, and another 6% for the remaining 5 years. Those are the numbers.
The 7%, Pinky, 7% is this year.
Yeah.
And we're very optimistic that is doable, because the revised projection of the government is 7 to 8% this year, from 7 to 9%. We already adjusted it. Yeah. And given what we have accomplished for the first quarter and
8.3%.
the second quarter, that is really doable.
Okay. Let's talk about finances still. Could you please explain to us how much budget you are working on, let's say, for the next 5.5 months? I say that obviously because I'm starting with sometime mid-July.
Well, that's really not my job. That's the job of Mina Pangandaman. But we have actually looked at the medium-term fiscal plan of the outgoing administration, and if I remember right, the plan is to reduce the deficit to 4.1% by 2025. Okay. So that's where we are. I have not seen the actual level of spending, but I argue that I think we should not cut spending at this time, because we're still recovering, and because a big chunk of that budget is for capital investment, and also we need a lot of money for education and health, because we want to fix or cure the scarring effect of the pandemic. So this is not the time for budget cuts. I think we should really focus on raising revenues.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that given the most recent reforms in the tax system, if we just focus on tax administration, I think we'll be able to meet our target revenues.
Just to follow up on that, I hope you can help us understand this better. The statement made by Congressman Edse Lagman that 90% of the budget has actually been disbursed.
That is false. I think what he probably meant is that the 90% of the approved budget has been released. When we say release, it means the advice of allotment, which authorizes the agencies to program their expenditures. 90% of that has been released, but it's not being disbursed. Disbursed means you have already spent it. We're only under our second quarter. It's impossible to spend 90% of the whole amount at this time.
So how would you call it?
Excuse
Advice
me?
of allotment?
It's actually the authority to disburse, okay? The 90% of the authority to disburse has been done, but it has not been actually disbursed.
Pag Tagalog po, Governor,
Nagastos na. Yung sinasabi niya na 90% ay nagastos na,
Hindi po
imposible
totoo.
yun mangyari.
Oo.
Hindi mangyari. Kasi, for example, yung sweldo, hindi ka pa naman nakakapag-serve ng 9 out of 10, 90%. Hindi ka pwedeng sweldohan kung hindi ka pa nagtrabaho, hindi
Opo.
ba?
meron pa,
Yun.
at meron pa mga susunod na buwan, July, August, September,
Correct,
October,
correct.
November,
Exactly.
December. So sa Tagalog po, para maintindihan natin, nabigyan po ng what? Otoridad na...
Otoridad na magprograma para magastos. Kasi you really have to plan how to spend your money. So for example, if an agency has a budget of 100 million, sometimes we in fact release 100% already. Release means, okay, you have the authority to program your expenditure for the next 4 quarters. So quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. But hindi naman ibig sabihin na magagastos mo na kaagad yung 100 million, di ba?
Opo. Hindi pa nagagamit. Parang ganun po yung inyong ibig sabihin.
Tama
All right.
yun.
Governor, we need to take a very short break. Still a lot of other issues and questions when we return. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, Bangko Sentral Governor and incoming Finance Secretary Ben Diokno. Governor, earlier you said that no budget cuts, and in fact, we need to continue raising revenues. Can you tell us how the Marcos administration plans to implement maybe better and efficient tax collection?
Alam mo, what happened is that the tax system that we inherited from the Aquino administration, what are the tax system that we will hand over to the next administration, the Marcos administration, is much, much better than the tax system that we inherited from the Aquino administration. We reformed the personal income tax, we reformed the corporate income tax, we increased taxes on cigarettes 3 times. We increased tax on petroleum. We increased tax on where we imposed tax for the first time, the tax on sugary products, and we also have an innovative measure that was introduced under this administration. That's the fuel marking. So all these reforms, I'm positive, will have a significant impact on the revenue collection. I think we should maximize, rather improve the tax administration to implement all these reforms. So our focus should be improve tax administration. And we do this through, for example, digitalization, which is more efficient and less prone to graft and corruption.
And with all these reforms and everything that you had identified earlier, with this administration, how much more in revenue are you expecting with the reforms made and better tax collection?
So that will be part of what we call the medium-term fiscal plan, where we will project how much revenue to GDP ratio will be, and so much for expenditure, and then of course the deficit. At the moment, I'm not in a position to tell you exactly in absolute level.
What
the
about
amount of
percentage,
credit.
Governor? Meron ho ba kayong percentage na nakikita in
Right
terms
now,
of
I
increase?
don't want to commit to some numbers, but I understand that the tax effort that is defined as taxes as a percent of GDP is at its highest at the moment.
Okay. Any talk on, very important, those who will be heading the BIR and the BOC?
Well, I have already submitted some names to the president, and I think it is appropriate that he should name the people who will man the Bureau of Internal Revenue and the Bureau of Customs. Those are two very important positions, and also the position of National Treasurer. If I have my way, I will retain our National Treasurer.
And you are not going to tell me who you recommended, pending the approval of the president-elect?
I have recommended, but I think it is appropriate for them to make the announcement.
Okay, but is that going to be soon, you think?
I think they make the announcements every Monday, so
Okay.
just a few days from
Let's
now.
wait for that one. Okay,
Correct.
but you think is President-elect Marcos going to get the person you had recommended?
Let's see, but I'm very optimistic.
Okay, Governor, let's talk about very important excise taxes on petroleum products. Pump prices again increasing by over 6% today for diesel and about a little over or about 3 pesos for gasoline. What is the stand of the Finance Department, the Marcos administration, in terms of excise tax? Because it seems like this may happen for a prolonged period of time.
I think if you look at compared to other countries, our excise tax on petroleum is quite low. All right, let's put it that way. Now, at the height of the crisis due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, global price of oil went up, and that the proposal of some people is to cut the tax on oil. To me, I agree with the present administration's position that it is not appropriate to cut taxes on petroleum. And so they decided that instead of cutting taxes, they would just provide targeted assistance to those who are in need, such as the fuel and transport subsidy program and the fuel discount program for farmers and fisher folks. That's superior to a proposed tax cut on oil products. Why? Because when you cut taxes, Pinky, when you cut taxes on fuel, what will happen is that it will benefit everybody, the rich, the poor, the middle income, right?
Right.
And when there's a need to put it back or restore the cut because the things have normalized, it's very difficult. It's difficult to push such measures before Congress. So I think this is a wrong move to cut the taxes at this time.
Is there, do you think, a more efficient way to be able to help those who might need it more than the rest? For example, Governor, the plight of the jeepney drivers, delivery drivers, etc. They are supposed to be accepting or receiving a certain amount. I believe it's about 6,500 pesos in ayuda. But if you watch and if you hear them almost daily, they say that hanggang ngayon di pa rin nila natatanggap. Of course, this is still under the Duterte administration. Is there a better way to be able to address the issues and the challenges they are facing right now?
What I'm saying is that a targeted assistance to jeepney drivers, to farmers, and to fisher folks is more efficient and a better approach than cutting taxes.
Right.
We will continue that approach.
Yeah, but I understand what you said. I guess what I'm trying to further ask is that patuloy pa rin ho kasi yung kanilang reklamo na hindi nila natatanggap yung subsidy. That's the problem of, well, could be, of course, obviously, sir, other agencies such as also the LGUs, the LTFRB, etc.
So
at the
that's,
DOTR.
to me, that's a problem of implementation. So we'll make sure that the implementation will be efficient and will be timely.
Last issue I want to discuss with you, Governor, yung the president-elect. He's not in favor of selling government assets. What is your stand? Are you looking at possible assets that could be sold to generate revenue?
Well, during the first Aquino administration, we sold a lot of assets, okay? Because there is really there are many assets that were acquired by the previous administration. But right now, the assets that we're talking about probably are public land controlled by some departments. Like there's large tracts of land owned by the military. I think if that's the what you're talking about, I think that could actually be on a long-term list. You can lease it out to, say, interested parties, and then maybe use it for agriculture purposes. That I agree with that. But I think at this time, I want to see first what are the assets that are going to be sold, and make an evaluation whether it's really worthwhile selling them at this time.
Okay. Bangko Sentral Governor and incoming Finance Secretary Ben Diokno. Sir, thank you so much for your time, and of course, congratulations and good luck to you.
Thank you, Pinky.
And coming up, motorists grapple with yet another big-time fuel price increase today. The transport group PISTON will again make an appeal to suspend the fuel excise tax and junk the oil deregulation law. PISTON President Mody Floranda joins us live after the break. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, or source today, PISTON President Mody Floranda. Mody, magandang umaga sa'yo.
Hey, Ber.
Opo, Mody, si Pinky po ito. Naririnig niyo po ako.
Yung TMBS, LT Party. Anong gagawin? Hindi, yung TMBS pupunta na LT Party.
Mody? Alright, may kausap ata si Mody. Pa-check ko muna sa ating mga kasama dito sa CNN para masiguro. Is Mody available? Okay, subukan po namin ulit mamaya. So, here's the thing. Another round of increase expected today, that is Tuesday, that happens every week, yung paggalaw ng presyo ng petroleum products, an average of about 6 pesos for, there you go, diesel is 6 pesos and 55 centavos per liter. That's an increase of 6 pesos and 55. And then for gasoline, it's about an average of 3 pesos. To be specific, it's 2 pesos and 70 centavos increase per liter. So that it doesn't seem like makakausap po natin si Mody ng PISTON. A while ago, before I went on air, nakausap ko siya at sinabi nga niya naroon siya ngayon sa LTFRB. Drivers have been asking and seeking an increase doon sa kanilang minimum fare and additional kilometers na mga jeep. At sa aking huling pag-check, that meeting for a minimum fare increase is supposed to be set sometime end of June, sometime June 28 and June 29. Lots of questions, of course, to ask Mody in terms of our jeepney drivers. Isa na doon, how can they cope with this huge increase in the price of diesel at over 6 pesos? And meron din po kasing threat or banta sa ilan sa mga jeepney drivers na hindi na ho sila mamamasada o magtitigil pasada sila because of the increase in diesel prices. And of course, an update sana doon sa tinatawag ng ayuda for the public utility drivers if they have actually received what has been promised to them by government. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to speak to Mody anymore. So we will just continue to find out more about the plight of our jeepney drivers. Maybe we can speak to him tomorrow. In the meantime, thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.